I spoke with Dick Blumenthal for 2 hours before I decided to run, went through my payroll tax holiday and other proposals. And then when he was on Morning Joe, shortly afterwards, he led off and asked, what are you going to do about jobs? And he had no national agenda. He said, payroll tax holiday. Okay, and I sent out an immediate press release commending him on that and urging others to do it. Jerry Labriola, running as a Republican in the 3rd District, payroll tax holiday. After speaking with him, he read my book, we've had discussions, loves it. Okay. What's happening is, in this country, is that if I was a Republican, Dick Blumenthal never would have spoken with me, and it never would have happened. Okay? If I was a Democrat, Jerry Labriola would not have it on his website. He will not take one of Dick Blumenthal's ideas. As an independent, and I'm with the Independent Party of Connecticut, we're the 3rd largest party, although we only have something less than 10,000 members. But as an independent, I can speak to either side, and it's okay for them politically to listen to my ideas. I've talked to Joe Lieberman, who's very sympathetic. I talked to several other congressmen a couple of weeks ago from out of state who are more than sympathetic and have read the book and are looking at how they can do it. I've been doing this for years. So I've already, it's not like I'm just coming out and talking about this as some way to get elected. This is something I'm doing anyway. This is something, a mission I've been on for a long time, that I've been making progress, and as an independent, I'll be, you know, in the U.S. Senate, I would be in a position to have my ideas to both parties. Now, for example, here's another idea I've talked to both parties about, and part of the problem with health care was the process. It was just ugly. The Louisiana Purchase and all the other vote buying that was going on, and it continues today. The way you solve that is by, and it's not quite as simple as it sounds, but it's not all that complicated. You make sure that you have a resolution that the federal spending for the year, let's say it's going to be $4 trillion next year, is divided equally among the states, based on a per capita basis. So if California has 10% of the population and Connecticut has 1%, California will get $400 billion total of federal spending. In their state, and Connecticut will get $4 billion, or whatever it comes out to, $40 billion, or whatever it comes out to. And then you can't buy these votes from these people because they're going to get the same amount of money anyway. Okay, you're not going to see Richard Blumenthal pushing for submarines because he's going to get the spending here anyway. You know, now all of a sudden we can look at submarines as, you know, is this what we really need for national defense? Not, is this what we need for the Connecticut's economy? This thing would be, you know, dramatically change the political landscape and bring back public purpose to what we're doing. Look, one of the key jobs, and this is, if nothing else, is to why, you know, I should get endorsements and get votes, is that the candidates running don't understand, or certainly haven't articulated, and their policies don't show it, that the federal government is there to prevent races to the bottom among the states. And here's what I mean by that. It's called fallacies of composition in economics. If you go to a football game and you stand up, you can see better. No question about it. But if everybody stands up, nobody can see better, and everybody has to stand up. Nobody can even sit down. Okay? And so it makes sense for the football stadium to have a rule that says you can't stand up for more than 3 seconds or 5 seconds. Okay? And it helps everybody out. Okay? And so otherwise you get this race to the bottom where everybody stands up and then everybody's worse off. We can see the same thing in the federal government. You get all these races to the bottom and you don't have proper federal support for it. So pollution control, we used to have a big race to the bottom, where the state that allowed the most pollution would get the most business. And the rivers all started catching on fire. But if you didn't allow your river to catch on fire, you were going to lose businesses. And so we have federal standards come in that raise the bar and say you can't do that. And so, you know, otherwise it's a disastrous race to the bottom. Dick Blumenthal's made good efforts to make sure that our employees are treated properly by corporations in Connecticut. But unfortunately, he's a victim of this race to the bottom. They just moved to another state. You can get Pratt & Whitney to delay until the end of the contract, but then they're gone because some other state will allow them to do what they want. The purpose of the federal government is to have minimum standards so you don't get corporations playing the states off against each other. Okay, we're doing the same thing with national education. Right now, the states with the lowest taxes get the most business and get the most people moving down there. So Florida has no state income tax. They get a lot of people moving down there. So what happens in Florida? Well, they've got, you know, what's arguably the worst educational system. And the other states get their education money drained also because they lose all their businesses. It's a race to the bottom. You need to put a floor under these things. The European Union specifically does that. They won't let different member nations now compete with each other through lower taxes to try and steal business from each other because everybody loses, nobody wins. Those things need to be decided at the federal level. Let the states compete on quality rather than quantity measures like that. Okay, and unless that's understood by our federal representatives, we're going to continue with these destructive races to the bottom everywhere. And as Connecticut tries to uphold high standards, we just lose people and businesses and everything else to other states that have lower standards. You need to have minimum federal standards that we agree on as a nation, okay, to prevent these races to the bottom. It's just absolutely critical, and I don't see this macro understanding. We have people who've worked in businesses, worked in state governments. It's different. At the state, you're competing for these things. At the federal level, you're making the rules for these types of things. So we have the understanding of the monetary system and the understanding of the federal role of the national government, which is provide public infrastructure to prevent these races to the bottom.
Last week you mentioned that Mr. Blumenthal's poll numbers, the way they've been going, looks like he's in some sort of a free fall that he may not be able to recover from.
Yeah.
Is that still true after the debates, or if you're picking, you seem like you're a gambling man, you like to wager. If you're wagering, who's going to win the race?
I guess it depends on which polls you look, but I've been looking at the Rasmussen polls, and he was going down, and McMahon was going up, and the curves were crossing, and it's very difficult in the last month to change that. Now, we have the debates. I don't know how many people are watching them. Mm-hmm. We have mistakes people make. We have last-minute advertising campaigns. Right now, it's a toss-up. It could certainly go either way. I think we're getting voters voting negatively right now. The supporters of McMahon it's not so much that they like her, but they're voting against Blumenthal. The supporters of Blumenthal, it's not so much that they like him, but they're voting against McMahon. And when you get those kinds of races, I can't say. You know, just looking at the charts and the momentum, I would say that Linda McMahon should have the edge. But you know, the last polls I saw quickly on the internet this morning, I thought, showed that he was holding his lead. Right?
There's two polls out yesterday, putting in double digits, 12, 11.
Yeah. If that's the case, if they're correct, it'll be very difficult for her to overcome the double digits. I was looking at the 3-point lead that the Rasmussen poll had. I don't know historically in Connecticut which polls have been more accurate, but if you believe the Rasmussen polls, then he's in serious trouble. If you believe the other polls, then McMahon's in serious trouble. So when I was asked a question, that was based on the Rasmussen polls.
Let me ask my last question.
Sure.
You are a populist Democrat,
yes,
philosophically, and you were toying with the idea of running for president, yes, and challenging the Obama administration in the 2012 Democratic, yes, primaries. Why then not go after the Democratic nomination against Richard Blumenthal and instead put yourself in a third-party situation where, yeah, even by your own admission, if people are coming out to vote negatively, you don't stand much of a chance.
Right.
So, is winning the issue here, or simply putting your agenda out there with the issue? Okay,
well, first of all, I did start off as a Democrat. I registered for the Democratic Party. I never belonged to any party for exactly that reason. I wanted to run against the administration's record, and it just didn't work out. The Democrats had already decided what they wanted to do, and so it didn't last very long. And then I found the Independent Party who welcomed me and said they could do it. Now, my agenda will be best promoted by winning. It doesn't mean it won't be promoted if I lose, but it will be best promoted by winning. And so I'm making a good faith effort to do what I can to win. Now, it doesn't look realistic right now, but that's the way I see it. I don't know if that answered.
Well, I was just wondering why didn't why not challenge Blumenthal in a primary if you're prepared.
Oh, they would not allow it. The Democrats would not allow a primary. Merrick Alpert wanted to be in the primary, and he had more support than I did, and they said no primary.
Oh, all they had to do was get petitions.
Oh, it was a hurdle I couldn't do. I couldn't get enough signatures from registered Democrats to make it in the allotted time. I did the math; it was impossible. Yeah. In fact, we got 11,500 signatures for the Independent Party to get on the ballot, and we did it with a few weeks to spare. But we had a lot of people out doing it, and those signatures can come from people of either party. To run a Democratic primary, it has to be Democrats, and very difficult to do. Peter Schiff had a lot of Tea Party support and a lot of popular support, and he just barely made it into the primary. So I didn't have those resources or capability that he had. I also thought initially that my proposals would get Tea Party support, even though they're supporting the balanced budget amendment, which is probably the most subversive thing out there right now. If we were ever actually to And look, Linda McMahon said on TV that she supports a balanced budget. That in today's economy, that would mean taking over $1 trillion out of this economy through either tax cuts, tax increases, or spending cuts. You're looking at, I mean, any econometrician will tell you you're looking at 40–50% unemployment, social unrest, just an absolute disaster if this happens. And yet, the headline rhetoric is carrying this thing. We've got, last time around, it did, in '97, I believe, it didn't miss by that many votes, 1 or 2 or something. And with a turnover this fall, we could actually have this thing coming in. So this is a serious problem. This is the biggest threat to our economy and our liberty that I see happening, is this balanced budget amendment. But regardless of that, I thought I had a chance for Tea Party support because I'm the biggest tax cutter out there. Okay, this payroll tax holiday is going to be worth something like $1 trillion a year, depending on how strong the economy is. And my healthcare plan is competitive market solutions, exactly what is called for by what the Tea Party was. And I certainly believe in constitutional government, and that a lot of the changes we're trying to make should be made through the amendment process as specified in the Constitution, and not trying to legislate from the bench or anything like that. That's just wrong, and I support the Enumerated Powers Act, where Congress has to point to where their authority in the Constitution comes from for anything they do. The Constitution is the instructions for the government. The government that comes from the people. The government is supposed to be following its instructions, or that's how our government works best. So, and I gave addresses to the Dallas Tea Party Leadership Group, which went very well. I got a lot of individual endorsements from that, and where I explained how the monetary system works exactly like I've done today, and I continue to get support from Tea Party leaders like Michael Johns and Patrick Leahy on my proposals. But it has not translated into any Tea Party support here, and the reason is exactly what you said before. Their goal now is to make sure Blumenthal doesn't win, and they don't see me as having a viable chance to do that, and so they're supporting Linda McMahon, who they were categorically against during the primaries. I mean, to the point where many of them said they would never support her, yet their desire to make sure Blumenthal doesn't win is moving them to support Linda McMahon, and that's where they're going to vote. And I understand that, and I respect that decision. That's just the political realities. And so I have gotten, so anyway, so back to your question.
I was just again wondering why you didn't challenge Blumenthal.
I did inside the Democrat, and they would not hold a primary. Yeah, it wasn't in the best interest of the Democratic Party to have a primary, and I respect that also.
Well, thank you for spending some time with us, and thank you for joining us this morning. We have one more live-streamed editorial board interview to do, and that's with Linda McMahon. As soon as the McMahon campaign gets back in touch with us after canceling twice to be here. So hopefully we'll hear from them. Otherwise, Mr. Mosler and Mr. Blumenthal's interviews are on our webpage. Have a good day.